Hello everyone, I welcome you all to the official YouTube channel of Law Prep Tutorial, and today we have Ratyansh Garg with us, who has topped the CLAT examination, and very many congratulations.
Thank you,
Ratyansh.
ma'am.
How do you feel?
I feel amazing after all. Yeah.
Alright, we are really proud of you. You have made everyone around you very proud.
Thank you so much,
So
ma'am.
tell us about your journey. How did you choose law as a career option since both your parents are doctors?
Yeah. So initially I did want to pursue the science stream because I was scoring pretty well in science. Normally when someone takes humanities, people expect that they weren't good at science or other subjects. That's why they took the subject. However, I was doing pretty well. I think I had gotten 96, 97 in my boards in 10th. But I just didn't like the career that one pursues after science. Like I didn't want to be a doctor or an engineer. But I really liked public speaking, debating, and even going through legal matter, litigation. So that's why I wanted to pursue law.
So you were pretty sorted in your head. And did you choose your subjects after 10th on the same opinion?
So that's why after 10th I chose humanities. I had pol science, history, economics. For 1 year I had maths, the applied maths, and I dropped it, and psychology.
So where did you do your 12th from?
So I did my 12th from the Jaipur Joshi High School.
Alright, okay. So tell me about your journey. I mean, let's start with the very first thing that we've been telling our students, that newspaper forms a very essential ingredient of your preparation.
Yeah.
How and when did you start with the newspaper reading?
So I initially started reading the newspapers sometime in 10th, but not really for the purpose of CLAT. Just for the purpose of knowing what's going around in the world and being better informed. Then only later did I, around halfway through 11th, I started reading it for the purpose of CLAT, wherein I wouldn't pay as much attention to irrelevant news articles, whereas for the other ones I would have a highlighter, just mark them, and then at the end of the month I would go through it once. So admittedly towards the end of 11th, because of exams, I did have to drop the newspaper, and I had to pick it back up about 3-4 months into 12th. So that's the way I was with the newspaper, and then I read it up till December, after which I was just revising old material.
Okay. And what was your strategy regarding editorials? How were you reading the editorials? Were you making notes as well?
So by and large, I wasn't really making notes from the editorials, because if there was important material in the editorials, I would just get it in the CLAT Express anyway. So I would just read them firstly, so to test how quickly I could read one, because in the exam I would get lots of editorials. So I had to acquaint myself to reading the editorials quickly, and then I would understand them, because I feel in the editorial, since there's an author's opinion there, you're able to understand the topic a lot better than just a news headline, because it's very neutral, it just has facts, it's not interesting to read. Where in the editorial they bring up even past history, they bring up lots of things, so it's much easier to understand news from an editorial.
So CLAT Express really helped you out?
Yeah. In terms of GK, I would say CLAT Express was my main source of actually learning GK or knowing what was happening. I was reading newspaper just to be more informed and understanding of everything that's going on.
Alright. And tell me something, since most of the students, they'll want to know that you were preparing alongside your 12th. So did it hamper your preparation? Like, what were the challenges that you faced?
I see. So towards 11th, since a lot of the concepts are taught in 11th, I had to focus quite a bit on my school as well. So 11th was pretty hectic. But then towards 12th, I had to focus more on law. So I would say in 12th, I did start neglecting school a bit. Because as it is, by then we'd gotten the notification that CLAT would be held before boards. So now I knew that I would have 3-4 months to prepare for everything that I had missed in those classes. So that's how I did it. So I wasn't preparing both of those side by side for the whole time, just in 11th. Then the notification came, CLAT is 6 months before. And so I had to leave school a bit.
Alright.
Yeah.
I want to take a moment to inform our students that Ratyansh was enrolled with us for a 2-year course, right?
Yeah.
2-year offline course.
Yeah, so initially I was in Jodhpur because there was lots of shifting involved. My father is in the army and my mother is in AIMS Jodhpur. So we were initially in Jaipur, we had to go to Jodhpur. Then I alone had to come back here again because there was some issue with my subjects. So I had been staying here in a PG. So
all by yourself?
Yeah. So initially I was enrolled in LPT Jodhpur, then I had to call up the office and get a transfer to Jaipur.
So it speaks volumes about the kind of dedication you have had, and it has paid off. So tell me something about how did you prepare for the subjects? Let's start with GK first of all, since that's the one subject that students find tedious. So how are you preparing for GK?
So for GK mainly I was going through the CLAT Express because I feel it combines everything that happened in the year and it gives you the relevant information. Whereas if you just go through all the newspapers, that's 10 times as many pages as a magazine, and most of the information is irrelevant. It's just a politician's statement or a restatement of something that happened a week ago. So that's how I revised GK. Also, when I was revising it towards the end, I always find it better to start with the most recent month and move backwards rather than the other way around, because something might be in the works in July and then it fully happens in September, and if you start from July you're just going to waste time rereading it at every stage. So that's how I did it, and that's why when I was preparing in December till I had got to around August, September, a lot of things I could just skip because I had already read about them in the magazines after that.
So if I say, as far as GK is concerned, that sieving out process is really important. What not to study is more important than what to study.
Yeah.
Did that work well for you?
Yeah, it did pretty well, but in this CLAT, the GK was pretty unpredictable. So what did help me out was the fact that I was actively reading a lot of things. I was reading novels, I was interested in chess, there was a question about that. So all of those extra things helped a lot. And the newspaper also helped because there were questions from the last weeks of November. So that also helped out in the paper at least.
I hope our students are taking a note, and everyone else who's preparing for CLAT, that extra reading, it always pays off, right? And what about legal reasoning?
So for legal reasoning, it was probably the most intimidating topic when I had first seen the syllabus for CLAT, because everything else I at least knew what it meant. Now, legal reasoning, my first impression of it was that I have to read the entire constitution, the IPC, only then can I even appear for the paper. But then once I started giving some mocks, I realized that a lot of things are already given in the passage, and you just need to have the aptitude for understanding what's written in the passage.
True.
So the first thing I did was, there's the legal basics module that we get. It has all the words like plaintiff, defendant, tortfeasor. I had to go through all of those. I understood what the terms mean, and then the whole process was a lot less intimidating because now I understood what was going on.
Exactly, when you're clear with your basics, it gets easier, right? And what about logical reasoning, critical reasoning? How were you preparing for that?
So for critical reasoning, I hadn't really improved much for almost an year. In 11th, I feel my scores in critical reasoning didn't go up too much. But in 12th, I had, since Soumitra sir was running marathon classes, he had explained the structure of an argument and all these concepts really well. And I feel that was the biggest jump in my critical reasoning scores was in those 2 months. Because initially I was doing somewhat average. In a mock I would get 10 to 15. And now in CLAT I got around, I think, 28 to 29 in CR. So I feel that was a pretty huge improvement.
Okay, all right. Some of the students, they told me that, English, reading comprehension, it was a bit lengthy. Did you feel the same?
I guess somewhat, because generally the way pretty much everyone gives English, it's that I personally read the questions first and then I read the passage. So I attempt English in around 15 or 20 minutes in the mocks. But I couldn't really do that in the CLAT because I feel a lot of questions which are generally in CR, like inference, conclusion, some of those were in the CLAT RC. So I had to read the entire passage in pretty much all of them. So that did make it a bit lengthier, but as a whole, I don't think the consortium made it any lengthier than the previous papers. So.
And how did you find Quant last?
Quant, I feel one of the questions was insanely easy in the CLAT about averages. I could attempt the entire Quant section in about 7 to 8 minutes, and but I hadn't prepared for Quant too well in my 11th, and I almost barely revised it. So that's why I realized that in 12th I have to make sure I do Quant well, because it's a really big factor getting those extra 10 marks or not. So in my last week or so, most people spend all their time revising GK, but I suppose 16th and half of 17th December I spent all just revising Quant, because I needed to be able to do those questions quickly. Because earlier I was so focused on the other subjects and making sure that I can finish them in as little time as possible, that there was this one mock which was a really big eye-opener for me, wherein I finished the entire paper in 1 hour 40 minutes, a pretty lengthy paper, law prep paper, and I thought I'd be able to do the entire thing. But then I had 20 minutes and I couldn't attempt a single Quant question. So I realized that I had to do something about that. So that was a complex journey.
And of course, since Quant is the one and only subject where you have a short option of scoring full marks, right?
Yeah.
So the mocks really help you out.
Yup.
All right. Another question which is really common amongst our students is, what was the lowest that you scored in your mocks and what was the highest that you achieved?
So my lowest and highest the lowest I got were probably in the first paper of the mock league. I hadn't given a mock in quite a while because the way I go about mocks is somewhat different. Because in 11th, whenever I gave weekly mocks, I didn't really find that to be too much of an improvement because I don't think I was really trying to improve. I was just giving the mocks. I thought Sunday aa gaya, I'll just give another mock, and I wasn't deliberately making sure that I'm improving my strategies or I'm trying something new. So my scores in 11th were somewhere between 60 to 70, whereas in 12th, when the mock league had started, I think it was in November, the mid-November, the first paper I gave, I hadn't given a mock for almost a month. I had gotten around 55. And then I went home, I analyzed the whole mock, the videos uploaded, and I saw where my shortcomings were. And then the next day I got 66, then I got 77. And so in the 7 days, I improved a lot more than I improved in like a year. Because I was finally trying new things to see what works well with me. So my highest score was actually 2 days before CLAT. The mock that Law Prep had on 16th. I got 102 on that mock.
Okay, alright. I really hope it acts as an eye-opener for all our students. And tell me, how did the mock league help you out?
So, as I mentioned, I found analyzing mocks on a daily basis much better than on a weekly basis because then I had the information about my failures from the previous day.
True.
Whereas in a week, you would just forget and you'd be more caught up in the GK or all the other studying that you did. So, the mock league really helped me out because every day I could try out a new strategy and then I could implement that and see whether or not it worked. So, that really helped. Further, the mock league papers were, I feel, the lengthiest and toughest that I've gotten so far, and that really acquainted me with CLAT because the complaint that I heard the most from people was that the CLAT paper was lengthy, but I saw it was 50 pages, and the mock league paper I still remember I was telling Anupa, ma'am, ये तो 67 pages का paper है, इतने तो CLAT के 2 हो जाएंगे. So that's why I felt that really helped me out.
Yeah. See, the idea behind coaching is to prepare you for everything, and that's what we always try to do.
Yeah.
Also, what was your strategy in attempting mocks, you know?
So I started, my strategy varied a lot, but the final one that I had was I started with legal reasoning. I had to cut down my time on it a lot. The first few times I did it, I took almost an hour in legal reasoning, which was way too much. So eventually I could cut it down to 40 minutes to 35. And then I did GK more somewhat as a break between CR and legal. So after GK I would do CR. Then I would fill my OMR for these three as a break between that and English. Then I would do English and finally maths.
You could really revise a very good strategy, and kudos, it worked in your favor.
Yeah.
Also, we always tell our students that you have to maintain a positive attitude. It really helps you in the long run, right?
Yeah.
So what were you doing to stay motivated or maintain that positive attitude?
I would say I didn't really have too much fear about CLAT in 11th because I said I don't feel I was too serious. I was just going through the motions. I was attending the classes, giving mocks, but I wasn't too focused on improving. Whereas in 12th, in the last 6 months and especially the last 3 months, I was far more stressed obviously about it. So I kind of just kept going about it. I kept reading everything, and as long as I was studying, I felt that I'm moving in the right direction. So that was what really kept me motivated, and that worked. And that also didn't that prevented me from getting distracted because the moment I would get distracted, the stress would come back. So I feel that just it was a cycle that just helped me complete the whole thing.
So you were not doing any sort of exercise, meditation, nothing?
That I did regularly, not as I do exercise, but I don't do it from the purpose of de-stressing. I just did that as a hobby.
Okay, alright. And did you find the CLAT paper actual exam lengthy?
Not really. I feel somewhat, it wasn't as lengthy, but I feel I lost some time because when you see a paper, obviously you have more stress than compared to when you're giving a paper in the mock. So I remember I was checking my watch the entire time, and legal reasoning took me about 45 to 50 minutes, which was a bit longer than I would have wanted. So that's why I had to cut down on time with CR and while making sure that I'm marking the OMR properly. So I don't think it was lengthy, but I feel that there were some inefficiencies on my part and on everyone's part to give the paper. So, yeah.
Alright. See, actual exam is always different from what you've been doing in the mock test. The atmosphere, it feels different. And there's some sort of stress, right? So you will definitely feel that. So now that you're on that side of this competitive exam, what would you like to suggest to our students or anyone who's preparing for CLAT examination?
So I'd say the biggest advice from my side would be to study with some intention. and not just read through it, because then most probably you won't even retain what you've read. So I would suggest that when going about the paper, give mocks quickly, somewhat about after you've done legal reasoning, you've understood how the paper is, start giving a mock so you know where you lack. Because most people just go about what their friends are doing, what everyone is doing, and they study in a set pattern. And they could spend hours studying something they've already almost reached their potential at, and completely neglect something just because it's hard. So I feel it's really important to analyze where you lack and then start working specifically on that area rather than going by what everyone else is doing.
Okay. And who all were mentoring you during this
So
exam?
I had mentors from 2 centers, and in fact in the last month, since my mother is living in Jodhpur, she gave me an option. She told me that I could, since I had taken a leave from my school for about 2 months, because CLAT obviously, so my mother told me to come to Jodhpur. And so I was discussing with Anupama ma'am that because the faculty rotates here in the CLAT, I feel faculties from everywhere were going to every center. So I was discussing with Anupama ma'am where I would get certain faculties, the people who've known me in Jodhpur. So I've studied in Jodhpur for about 6 to 7 months, and then I came here, so about more than a year.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. And any last tips?
So the tip that I mentioned about studying with attention, apart from that, going through GK regularly helps a lot, because if you cram too much in the last month, you really won't retain most of that. So it's better if you start GK early, and because you're going to get newspapers every day, you're going to get magazines every month. So it's really much better to start early while keeping up with the newspapers as well. Because in this CLAT, there were really unpredictable questions, and they could have been somewhere in a newspaper, and it would really help if one went through that.
All right.
Yeah.
Chalo, thank you so much for joining us, and I wish you all the very best in life.
Thank you so much.
All right.